To begin my sermon, I need some people that I've asked to help me. Just, not you yet, Josh. You gotta wait, hold on. Okay, Nikki and Catherine and Allison. I need these four lovely people to help illustrate a story from my own life. So you four ladies, your friends, and so just stand kind of in a crescent moon shape, like, you know, like you're a group of people, like you like each other. See, okay, they're rearranging, it's all good. Okay, so I went to college, I started college at the U of M Morris, and I went to the same college as my best friend. And when we got to college, we made two more girlfriends who added to our foursome, and we were the best of friends could be. And then the second year of college, I met Erin. And we were just ridiculously, embarrassingly gaga for each other. Like from day one. It's really embarrassing to think about this. We were just, yeah, we just couldn't like take our eyes off each other. So Josh, this is where you come in. You're playing the role of Erin. Nikki is playing the role of me. So Josh, I want you to just stand right in front of her. Like, just stand right there. Okay, so I had this lovely group of friends who was really patient with me. But then one day, one of my friends, she said, Mary, in my psychology class, we're learning about body language and how body language can actually convey more than our words. And we've been noticing that you and Erin are practicing closed body language when you're hanging out with the rest of us. Maybe you two could open the circle so when you're hanging out together, like you can still be standing next to each other, still hanging out, that's great. We like that you are so happy with each other. But you could open the circle, and when we're all together, we're all a part of it. That's what I learned from my friend in college. Okay, let's give a hand to our volunteers. So I think sometimes when people enter into a dating relationship, it can be hard for them to keep friendships with people whom they've been friends with for a long time. It's hard to navigate that. How do you make time and balance that group of people that's been so meaningful for you, as well as entering into a new relationship? I think a lot of times friendships don't survive that. And I am thankful that I still have that group of girlfriends, and I still have that boyfriend who's my husband. And I really appreciate how my friend pointed out our body language to the rest of the group. I'm thankful that she was open and honest, and she wasn't trying to make us feel bad. She was just pointing out something to us that we couldn't see in our dizzying infatuation with one another. And so now it's become shorthand for us. We'll say, hey, open the circle. And that just means there's more people around. Let's take notice. I think that can happen in any grouping of people. And I try to be aware of it, and I'm not always perfect, but if I'm talking to someone and, oh, there's more people coming, how can I open up to the other people so I'm not being closed in my body language against someone? But I want you all to think about a time when you have been a part of a group or a club, some gathering of people where you have felt fully welcomed in that group. Was it the body language that communicated that to you? Was it words that were spoken that communicated it? Was it attitudes or habits of the group? Were there leaders in the group who helped set the tone for being welcoming to the whole group? And did each member in that group make it their own responsibility to be welcoming, to open themselves up to the whole group? I hope that you've been a part of something where you have been fully welcomed. But now I want you to think about a time where you have felt shut out from a group. Was it words that were spoken to you? Was it the body language of the group that communicated you are not welcome here? Was a tone set by a leader that says certain people are in and certain people are out, and the outsiders have to pay their dues in order to become an insider? I hope that you have not been a part of that, but I'm sure you have. We all have been in groups or had times of our lives where we have felt shut out from a group. Group dynamics and body language are something that are addressed in Ephesians, this Bible passage that I shared with you earlier. Paul, who wrote this letter in the New Testament, was addressing two distinct groups that he was sharing God's plan with, God's hope to bring these groups together, to help shape a new group dynamic. Now, this group was made up of Jewish people who had had a long relationship with God, who'd had a relationship with God for many centuries, who'd been learning God's laws, God's ordinances, God's commandments. They had shown their devotion to God by their dietary restrictions and purity laws. They had shown their devotion to God through their religious rituals. But after Jesus died and was resurrected, a whole new group gets welcomed into God's family as well, a group called the Gentiles. The word Gentile in the New Testament is a word that means nations. So just everybody in the world who's not Jewish. So there's the Jewish group and the Gentile group, and God's hope is to bring these groups together to create one new humanity. And it went really smoothly, and it was great. Amen. Oh, wait. Actually, God's not done with God's plan yet, because there's still a lot of divisions between people. But Paul is trying to share with this group of people what God is working on, this plan that God has for all of humanity. And this plan includes breaking down divisions between people, breaking down the distance between people, the isolation between people, and the fear and the distrust and hatred between people. Jesus wants to end how the law has been used to keep some people in and keep other people out. Jesus wants to get rid of the hostility and the resentment and the anger that has built up between people. What Jesus wants to do is to demolish and to bulldoze everything that has separated people. And the tool that Jesus uses to do that is the cross. Jesus demolished these divisions through his words. He said he proclaimed peace to those who were far away and peace to those who were near, who were already in the group. But Jesus didn't just stop with his words. Jesus' body language conveyed that all were welcome. When Jesus spread wide his arms on the cross and died on the cross and gave his life, his body language says, I am giving my life for all of you, to make this one new humanity, to bring peace, to bring forgiveness to everyone. That is what God's hopes are for this world, demolishing all the things, bulldozing all the things that separate us, and then using all those pieces, including all of us who have come since that time, and using all of us to build up a house that is a dwelling place for God. That's huge. Get rid of walls and build a house. And I am positive it is an open concept floor plan. I'm sure Chip and Joanna Gaines got all of their best open concept ideas from reading the Bible, from saying, yeah, let's knock down that wall between the kitchen and the living area. Let's open up the space. God's plan is to knock down walls and make this beautiful open space dwelling for all people. It's amazing. As I've been studying Ephesians, I've been really struck by a few things. First, God's plan is way bigger than you or me. We are just small, tiny little pieces in this world, just small, tiny beings. I think we can get so caught up that we forget that. We get caught up in the everyday rat race of life and the stress of every day and the dramas that play out in our friends or in our family groups. We get so caught up that we forget to look up and look out and see how big God is and how big God's plan is. Because it said in Ephesians, God is trying to create one new humanity and use this whole humanity to create a dwelling place for God. God is really big, and it's going to take a whole bunch of us to make this huge dwelling for God. But even though we are small, God's plan includes you and me. Because it says Jesus proclaimed peace to the people who were the farthest away and peace to the people who were already in the club. Jesus wanted to include everyone. So even though we are small parts of God's plan, we're invited to be a part of it too. That's amazing. Jesus wanted to change strangers into family members and change aliens into citizens and use all of us as building materials for this big plan. Now, as I've been memorizing Ephesians over the last number of weeks, I've been struck by some words that keep showing up. In this short passage about unity and bringing people together, the word hostility shows up 2 times. 2 times in a passage that's so beautiful. And it's easy to understand why, because there is a lot of hostility still in our world. We can read the news, we can look at big world situations, and we see a lot of hostility. We see hostility between political parties, people who will not speak to each other if they do not vote the same way. We see hostility between countries. We see hostility between different races. We see hostility between men and women. And Jesus came to break down all of that hostility. But we don't even have to look all the way around the world to see hostility. I think there's a lot of hostility in our own homes. There's hostility in our schools and hostility in places where we work. There's hostility in this community. We see a lot of hostility that leads to resentment, that leads to fear, that leads to people being more and more isolated from one another and fearful of each other and afraid to open up the circle and be welcoming to one another. That is not what God intends, to have this hostility be built up. But I've also noticed that in this beautiful short passage about unity, even though hostility is mentioned twice, the word peace is mentioned 4 times. So Jesus is trying to break down these walls using the tool of peace, spreading peace around like Jesus spreads grace. The word grace means undeserved goodness from God. So Jesus is spreading peace around to all of us, whether we deserve it or not, giving the same message of peace to all people. And as followers of Jesus, we're invited to follow Jesus' lead. We are invited to share a word of peace right where we live, in our homes, in our schools, in our places of work, with the people that we interact with. There are many difficult situations in our life, and we can say words that will add to the hostility that exists, or we can say words that will bring peace. And we can also open our circles. If we are just coming to church or school and we just want to focus on the people we already know and just put all of our attention on them, we may not be seeing other people who are coming too. Because I think it's all of our responsibility to open the circle, to be welcoming, to say a word of peace, to not be afraid, to follow the example that Jesus has set for us. Speak peace. Open the circle. Amen.